Hello and welcome to The Canadian Wants to Know. My name is George,
My name is Heinrich.
and today we're going to talk about inflation. Is it bad, and are we at risk of experiencing massive levels of inflation because of all the government spending happening right now? That's what we're going to try to answer for you guys today. So let's start with the basics, of course. Is inflation bad?
Not generally. First of all the central banks in the world say, okay, we need a certain level of inflation. And they say we need 2 or 3%. Because if an investor buys new machines to produce products, then he has to be quite clear that he can get a good return of his money. And if there's a risk that the prices would go down, then it makes no sense for him to invest. So it is a general agreement that we need a certain level of inflation. But the question is how high it should be. And obviously there's a point where inflation is too high, because if inflation is too high, for example 40 or 50 or 60%, then you don't know when you produce a product whether it makes sense for you to sell it, because maybe people say, I keep it because I don't know how the prices will go on, and one day I don't get the money I want to get for this. If the inflation rate is too high, it makes no sense to sell the product, because then I get money and I don't know whether this money has a worth tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. So we need a certain level of inflation, but it hasn't to be too high. That's risky. And important is, when we talk about inflation, that all the groups, the workers and the pensioners, can get higher wages and higher pensions when we have inflation. Then we have no risk. But inflation doesn't have to be too high.
Can you explain what causes inflation? Because right now everyone thinks that it's the government spending, that anytime that the government spends money, that it's going to automatically lead to inflation. Is that true?
No, that's not true. First of all, we can't speak about all the causes of inflation. When you go to a library of a university, you can find a lot of books about inflation. But I think a simple rule is that spending, the level of spending in a society and the supply of goods should fit. If the spending is too high, people want to buy products, but the economy can't deliver these products, then we would have the risk of a high inflation. So that's the general rule. If the demand and the supply of products in society doesn't fit, then we have the risk of a high inflation. For example, we had some weeks or months in the springtime of this year when it was difficult to get toilet paper or hand sanitizers, and maybe there were some weeks where you have to pay a higher price than normally because everybody wants to have toilet paper or hand sanitizers, but the market reacted and produces a lot of toilet paper and hand sanitizers, and there were, after a while, we had enough of these products, and the prices could go down. Yes.
Right, so if you have too much demand and not enough supply, that can lead to inflation.
Yes.
So the fear is that high government debt will lead to inflation. Why isn't that we haven't seen inflation in this particular moment in time when governments have been spending so much?
I would say it's a wrong thought that there is a close relationship between the debt of a state and inflation. To come to an understanding of how inflation is caused and how the spending of the government works, it's helpful to analyze a concrete situation. And today we have a situation all over the world where states increase their debt and they put a lot of money in the system and we don't have inflation. The question is why? Normally, a lot of economists would say, no, it's a risk of inflation. I would say we don't have any risk of inflation. What is happening? The artist, the owner of a restaurant, the owner of a theater can't get his normal earnings because nobody is allowed to go to a restaurant, to a theater and so on. And the state gives these people a certain amount that they can survive, that they can buy their products to survive, their food, that they pay their rents and so on. So that means, on the one hand, the state gives certain groups of our society money that they can buy these things they need to survive. On the other hand, for example, I can't go to a restaurant, I can't go to a theater, I save money. That means what is happening, on the one hand, the state puts money in the system, on the other hand, we have people who save money. And obviously, the general level of demand is so low that we don't have any inflation. Let's talk about me. I save money on one hand. On the other hand, I buy products I didn't buy in the past. For example, a new TV system because I can't go to the cinema. The TV prices haven't increased. That means the market is able to adjust a potential higher demand. So quite easy. The point that the state puts money into the system doesn't increase inflation because other groups of the society who don't get money from the state save money, or they buy other products the state is the market is able to produce.
Okay. So what about in 1 or in 2 years, right? So maybe right now I'm saving my money, but will we have a situation where all of a sudden people start spending large amounts of money, and could that lead to inflation in the near future?
If we suddenly would withdraw our money from our accounts and go to the shops and buy what we can buy, then we would have inflation.
Yes.
But this situation we never have.
Yeah.
It could be that next year, for example, we go to the cinema, we go to the restaurants, we go to the theater, but I don't believe that the demand will so highly increase that the cinemas, the restaurants are obliged to increase their prices because the demand is so high. I don't believe it. And if we would have this situation, I never believe that we will have this situation, then the state could react.
Okay.
The state could decrease his spending, the central bank could increase the inflation, the interest rate, and the last option is nobody likes it. We can increase the taxes.
Yes, we want more taxes, huh?
Yes. No, nobody wants to pay more taxes.
Okay, so even in the worst case scenario where we might see an inflation because everyone starts to spend, the government does have some tools that they could implement to manage it so that the inflation rate doesn't go up too high.
Yes, I'm quite sure that the state doesn't need these instruments, but in an emergency case, the state would have these instruments.
So could you leave us with one main takeaway so that the audience can remember this after they finish watching the video?
Yes, just forget the fear of too high government debt and government spending. The government debt is never a problem as long as it is in its own currency. And that we should understand because it's really possible for our future, because we have to invest a lot and we need the state. We have to change our industry. We have to lower the unemployment and underemployment, where we need the state, his spending, its spending, and its debt. Next time we will talk about the unemployment and underemployment, because this is one of our real risks and not the debt of a state.
So we have one final question for the audience, and that question is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is the economy to a healthy society? So if we want to build a healthy society, how important are these questions of economics for that? You can leave your answers in the comments section below. Thank you guys for your attention. We will see you in the next episode. Also, bis nächstes Mal.
Ciao.